if you would come up, identify yourself, and tell us what we're talking about here, and give us a chance to enlighten ourselves on it, please.
Sure. My name is Bryan Hill, and thank you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to speak to you all this afternoon. My name is Bryan Hill. I'm a regional planner with the Roanoke Valley-Alleghany Regional Commission, and in conversations that we've had with the staff, we have developed this amendment to the comprehensive plan for the development of an urban development area. And you ask, what is an urban development area? That is an area that is targeted for growth, development, redevelopment, infill development in the next roughly 20 years. This has been sort of an ongoing seesaw type initiative over the last several years. In the last 10 years, at certain points, the General Assembly has mandated UDAs, then they have relaxed those restrictions, and now it is, shall we say, voluntary. However, with the advent of a new program called Smart Scale, which is a new way that the Virginia Department of Transportation and the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation handles the prioritization and allocation of projects in the transportation world. The UDAs have resurfaced. So now one of the, under the recently adopted Virginia Multimodal Transportation Plan, otherwise known as VTrans 2040, there are 4 ways that a potential project can get, shall we say, screened in to be initially applied for. And now transportation projects are competing against others in the same construction district. They're competing against, depending on their location, if it's on an interstate, they're competing with other projects in the state. There's, like I said, there's 4 ways to get on to get your project in the front door. One is through a corridor of statewide significance, I-64, I-81. Another is the urban development area, a designated area where, again, you feel that growth is going to be occurring in the next 20 years, and that any project in that UDA would be, any transportation project would be serving that directly with that UDA. There's a regional network that essentially is any area within a metropolitan planning organization area, which this area is in the rural portion of the Roanoke Valley-Alleghany region, so that would not necessarily apply to you all. And then there's a safety need. So if there are projects that based on crash data and other safety needs that the locality feels needs to be applied for. And currently, the city of Covington would only, under the Smart Scale program, would only be eligible for a safety project. In the creation of the UDA, this would again allow that UDA area, which you may have read or seen in the staff report, that the proposal is for the entire town boundary, the city boundary. And the purpose of that is, again, development, redevelopment, infill development, anything that is of a growth type nature within the city, again, within the foreseeable 20 years. So we're going through this process in order to, number one, to develop those urban development areas, and as part of the UDA designation, the localities can provide incentives for development. There are some localities that will, for example, that will expedite development services proposals. They'll speed up the permitting process. Others can provide monetary incentives. What we're looking here, I guess, in the short term, is that ability to have a project application coming from the city that says, yes, this project serves an urban development area. And in determining whether or not the UDA is, if this is, obviously suitable. Some of the things that we look for are not only our population density, we looked at the number of dwelling units and townhouses, and that matches up with the minimum amount required for a UDA. You're looking for principles of what's called traditional neighborhood design, pedestrian-friendly road design, interconnection of local streets, connection to road and pedestrian facilities, mixed-use neighborhoods, a lot of things that already do exist here. And again, the legislation in 2014 referred to as smart scale changed the way that transportation projects were done. Once upon a time, it was your local delegate or your state senator was, for lack of a better term, lobbied to get a project on the 6-year improvement program. All right, fine, that project may have stayed and languished on the SYIP for 15, 20 years without it having any funding allocated to it. The point with this program is to have more transparency, is to have smaller projects broken up into phases, and to get projects on and off the 6-year improvement program within, you guessed it, a 6-year period. VDOT has instituted what's called a full funding policy. So any project that is applied for through the smart scale process and subsequently funded, whenever that is programmed, you can guarantee that it will have the entire funding through a 6-year period, so that then construction, engineering, and right-of-way acquisition, if needed, occur. So this is one of those things that sort of takes a lot of the politicking out of the transportation process. If any of you have had the opportunity in years past to go to a fall or spring VDOT transportation meeting, you may have seen elected officials, appointed officials standing where I am in front of the transportation secretary or your CTV members, essentially lobbying and asking and begging them to put a project on the 6-year plan. That doesn't really happen anymore. It really now is, once the projects are scored, which the smart scale process is now going to a 2-year process. Every other year there are projects. So this year, as a matter of fact, in March, the application window opens for the projects, and that is one of our time constraints, obviously, for coming to you now. Let's see. I guess with regard to the map that you have in front of you, the map is simply just a revision of what is your existing future land use map with a black boundary around it, which is the proposed UDA boundary. At this point, as we're aware, you all are going through a joint comprehensive plan amendment process. We are, at this point, asking for, again, the map to be amended into the current plan, as well as language that says essentially that this conforms with Code of Virginia 15.2, 23.1, which is for the development of the UDA. Hope that covered it. I could talk for probably 3 hours about smart scale, and neither you nor I would want that. So if there are any questions, please, I will try to field them at this point.
Well, thank you for the explanation. I think that clears up some of it for me. It obviously explains what it is and why you do it. Why wouldn't we do it? That's the answer.
I can't speak to why you necessarily wouldn't do it for the transportation grant access part of it. You're not obligated. You're not obligated to provide any incentives whatsoever. That is not. That would be something. If I were in your position, I would. That would be my first question: is okay? Do we need to provide? Do we have to provide? And the answer is no. In a perfect world, you would want to probably do things to attract or perhaps steer, and in this case, you've got quite a bit of land to steer folks to anywhere in the city toward development. So I guess coupled with what you're already doing, if there are things that, like I said, expediting the permitting process, or something to incentivize building future things could be perhaps overlay districts, for example, which would include certain building guidelines, that sort of thing. That could be something that should promote not only development, but to promote a certain quality and caliber of development, that sort of thing. But off the top of my head, I can't really think of any negatives at this point.
I'm trying to make sure that by asking for this or designating this, we're not crippling anything else we have going on.
Not that I know of.
It doesn't supersede or anything like that.
It's meant more to accentuate things that we're currently working on.
Anybody else got any?
Yeah, I got a question. You mentioned something about at this point we only be eligible for safety projects. Could you expand on that?
Yes, the way the smart scale framework is currently designed, any locality can apply for projects that would serve a safety need, and that is further spelled out in this VTrans 2040, the multimodal transportation plan for the state, as well as a lot of data that VDOT has collected. There's a couple of websites you can go to, and you can see the crash data for a particular locality. And I have not had the opportunity to assist any locality with a safety application, so I won't say it's easier, but I think it's a little more straightforward. This limits, in my estimation, this limits the locality's ability to apply for anything else that might not have a safety component in it. And in terms of adding or cobbling together a piece that might be considered a safety component, I think we might fall short if we're not focusing on just the safety aspect. So again, by designating the UDA, you have that ability to do any sort of project. You could, and there are projects that do check the box for multiple screening categories. So, for example, you all could do a safety project. Obviously, that would check the safety project box. But since it is in a designated UDA, it also checks the UDA box. So you've got two of the four ways to get in. Whereas without the UDA, it's just the one. If that helps.
So if we don't look at the UDA, if it's not a safety need, then the bulk of the money is still going to go to Roanoke because that's where the greater need is.
The way the local projects work, unless you all apply for something that is on, let me think, possibly US 60 or 64, you are going to be only competing for a pot of money that's called the district grant program. So in other words, you're going to be competing with localities throughout the Stanton district. If you were to go after a corridor of statewide significance project, say an interstate or a major corridor, you at that point, yes, would be competing with if Roanoke went after an I-81 project or anything in Richmond or Hampton Roads.
Those would be statewide.
Yes, that's right.
Anything else would be Stanton district.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And this changes the way that the projects were applied for. Back during the old system, there was a required 80-20 match. Under Smart Scale, there is no match. However, the way the system worked, and this is where I can talk for 3 hours, and again, you don't want that. The way smart scale works is you want the biggest bang for your buck, and if a locality can have another project that already addressed a portion of the project they're applying for, or some amount of money that they can use as leverage, that leverage will lower the denominator, the formula that is designed to calculate the cost benefit. So if you put together a project that has a $10 million price tag, and you're asking for all of it, your score might be X. If you ask for a project, if your total cost of your project is 10 million, but yet you're only asking for 7, your cost benefit's going to be X minus whatever. So it behooves, and of course, the better the project, the more bang for the buck. So smaller projects tend to do well. Projects that are broken into pieces. I'll give I-81 as an example. Obviously, there's not enough money to 6-lane I-81 from exit 118 to say 150. But instead, there are projects that are being applied for and being funded for 1 and 2 miles on either side, north and southbound, of what's essentially called an auxiliary lane. So it's a 3rd lane. Fast forward, who knows, 25 years in the future, if we still have a great amount of transportation funds, that process is either going to continue, or if there's some magical pot of money that comes down and says, okay, we want to finish this and make it 6-lane, then that might happen. But my crystal ball does not see that far into the future. But this is another way to work more with less money.
Anybody else?
I have another question. In the staff report, it mentions that the UDA should meet projected residential commercial growth in the locality for 10 to 20 years. On the second page, it says that the city does not meet the required residential commercial densities sought by the UDA determination, and then the growth is most likely to occur in downtown area. So that seems contradictory to me. Could you help me understand that?
Oh, okay, the second page, I'm not sure I'm seeing the same paragraph you're looking at.
All right. First page. Just above the bullet points in that paragraph, it says UDA should meet projected residential and commercial growth in the locality for 10 to 20 years. On the back page, under the analysis, it says the city does not meet the required residential and commercial densities sought for a UDA designation, and any future residential and commercial growth is most likely to occur in the downtown area.
I believe it does. It says the city does meet the required residential and commercial. Yes, that would be a, as they say, a deal breaker.
The city does make it. My glasses, I apologize.
Oh, that's all right. No, that's fine. I'm glad you had me take a look at that. Yeah.
Any questions?
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Appreciate it.